Joining us this morning, Titania Jordan.
Tatiana Jordan. Did I get the name right? Jordan?
Titania.
Titania. Okay.
Titania.
All right.
It's Titania Jordan.
Bing! Thank you so much for tuning in to Connect. We are on air with Brandon Smith, who is coined as the workplace therapist.
The workplace therapist.
Yeah. So tell us what that means.
So I'm a little bit of a non-bird, so I have a clinical therapy background as well as an MBA. So it's my version of a Reese's peanut butter cup. Somehow it kind of works. And my entire passion and purpose in life is one singular thing, and that is to eliminate all workplace dysfunction.
Yes,
Everywhere,
Preach.
forever.
I love it.
So I bounce around the world wearing lots of different hats to try and do that. Sometimes I'm wearing my faculty hat at Emory's Business School. Sometimes I'm wearing my executive coach hat. Sometimes I'm wearing more of a consultant hat. But whatever it happens to be, whatever is needed, I'm trying to make the world a little less dysfunctional. And I think everybody could use a workplace therapist.
Amen. I love it. We're done.
That's it. That's a wrap.
Just kidding. Did you always know that this was going to be kind of your calling, or if not, when did you stumble into it?
So, interesting somewhat backstory. So I'll kind of share you the whole story. I always like to give people kind of the whole version.
Love it.
So growing up, I was the youngest of three boys. I had two older brothers. Both were adopted, and so my parents were told they couldn't have kids.
Wow.
And then one day I came along.
So you're a miracle.
One could, I guess so. Hopefully a happy one. I don't know. So my brothers were 12 and 11 years older than me. So I always tell people with brothers that much older, I know what the inside of a dryer looks like. That's the kind of stuff that big brothers do. I know what it's like to have someone say, "Don't ask questions, just drink it."
Yeah,
that's what older brothers
so
do.
So sweet.
Yep. So my dad worked for meat paper company, so we moved around from paper mill town to paper mill town. Eventually came down to Atlanta and settled down here. Well, growing up, my oldest brother, Chris, was always kind of in and out of jail, had lots of kind of challenges with drugs, in and out of rehab centers. And so that was kind of my life growing up. A lot of kind of some dysfunction. My family was really good, but some level of dysfunction in my house when he was around. And when I was 7, he had left a rehab center and he just decided life was too hard and he took his own life. And that was a particularly tough time for me, tough time for my family.
Yeah.
So much so that I came down with an uncontrollable stutter. So I couldn't speak in public for a number of years. So every day before middle school, I would go in and see my speech therapist and kind of work through my B's, my P's, my T's, try and figure out how to speak without stuttering. And so with that coupled with my brother's death, I thought, well, gosh, people are way too dysfunctional. Like, I really don't want to have anything to do with them. So I became kind of a world-class wallflower all through high school, and then that continued into college. Ironically enough, I majored in communications in college. I'm not exactly sure how exactly that happened. And like most good communication majors, I couldn't find a job after graduation. So I'm floundering around, and I take a job with a small chain of retail stores based here in Atlanta. They had about 13, 14 stores, and it was a family-owned business, privately held, and so my boss was the son-in-law of the business owner. So the woman who started the business, her daughter married this guy, he's my boss.
Wow.
And so I show up first day of work, and he greets me at the door, and he says, "You're going to be the assistant manager of the store." And I said, "Well, that's great." He said, "I'm really excited for you." He said, "But before you get started, I have a task for you. You need to go in the back room, and waiting for you in the back room is the current assistant manager of the store. But he doesn't know you're coming. So your job is to go fire him, and then you get his job."
Oh, snap.
And that was how my boss rolled. He'd come in and he would say, "You know, I don't like what Sharon's wearing up front, go fire her." I did more layoffs in the first 6 months of that job than any other time in my career.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which segue.
Which then, that kind of woke me up. So that was really what made me realize, I realized 3 important things about my life during that experience. One, I realized, man, the world, first of all, work should not have to suck.
No.
It should not have to suck. I mean, it should be a source of fulfillment and purpose and meaning for everybody.
Yes.
Not a source of stress and anxiety and depression. Second, the world needed better leaders and managers in like a serious way. Like if this is any sign of the state of leadership, we have got a major, major problem.
Oh yeah.
And third, that was where my purpose was born. And so whatever hat I wear, it's all about eliminating all workplace dysfunction. So since that point, I've been on that path. So I went back and got a clinical therapy degree and worked in corporate for a while, and then got my MBA and been out.
I love it.
Kind of fighting the good fight.
It's awesome.
At least I try to every day.
That's a great story, and thank you so much for your authenticity and sharing that with us. That's,
of course.
You know, when you can kind of learn how somebody's past experiences shape their current role, it's very, very meaningful. So thank you again.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in people being able to unlock their own personal story. Plus, because that's the therapist in me too.
I love it. I'm like, should I be paying you?
Somewhere.
I know. You just let me know how much I owe you for this time together. What are some of the most dysfunctional things that you have seen in a workplace?
Okay, so I'm going to jam on this for a while.
Great.
We could jam on this big
Jam
time.
away.
Okay, so because I go into all different kinds of organizations, so big companies, small companies, tech companies, publicly traded companies, nonprofits, churches, schools, I had to create kind of a back of the envelope litmus test. So when I walk in, I'm like, okay, is this place crazy town or okay, or where on the spectrum of crazy town versus awesome, okay? And so I really look for three things. So the first thing is clear roles. Like if people know what their role is, they know their sandbox, they're less likely to step on someone else's toes. So clear roles, clear expectations. So does everyone know what success is supposed to look like? Is there a sense of purpose or vision or mission or values or even just goals? And third, balanced feedback. And balanced feedback is loosely defined as more positive than negative feedback. Research shows it should be between 3 positive to every 1 negative to 5 positive for every 1 negative. Because negative feedback's heavier, more weightier.
Yeah.
So if people are giving compliments to each other and celebrating wins, they know what is expected, and they know their job and how they fit into the bigger picture, you're likely going to be on the functional side of dysfunction. If you don't have those things, then it's crazy town.
Crazy town.
It's one of the reasons why kind of little known or unholy truth is that nonprofits are some of the most dysfunctional organizations on the planet.
Oh my gosh.
Because there's rarely clear roles, rarely clear expectations, and everyone's running around kind of doing everyone else's job and feeling overworked and burned out, so they're not giving positive feedback to each other. And often nonprofits have a rescuing kind of state. So commonly when I walk into a nonprofit and they've called me in to do work, it's not uncommon that within the last 6 months someone has just been hospitalized for working themselves into a medical condition.
Yep, that's, oh my gosh, that happens way more frequently than it should.
Yeah.
What are some funny stories you can share from the crazy town aspects? You know, leave names and companies aside, but just, I mean, because you've seen it all.
Yeah, so I will tell you, sometimes it has to do with an individual, and sometimes it has to do more with the culture and the dynamic. So I'll kind of start with the culture side first. So I'll give you some ways to kind of look at that and think about that. On the culture side, a couple things can also impact the flavor of dysfunction. Okay, so you can almost think of like, which flavor do we want to order? Extra spicy, mild, a little vanilla, rocky road, whatever it happens to be. So if it's a big corporation, any company over $3 billion in revenue is not a company anymore, it's a government. So once you hit $3 billion, you cease to become a company and now it's all politics.
Wow.
So then you'll end up with a lot of dysfunction that has a lot to do with people playing politics. Backstabbing, blowing up other people's agendas, you'll have those kinds of things.
Yeah, we don't like that.
No, if you get smaller, then you can have dysfunction because there's not a lot of clear roles and people are running around. But honestly, I found that some of the healthiest organizations have been family-owned businesses, and some of the most dysfunctional organizations have been family-owned businesses. Because whatever the values or how people operate in that family, that's going to get magnified exponentially based on that family dynamic.
Wow.
So I worked with a business. This was some years ago. And it was a family-owned business. And one of the challenges was the business owner had a brother that was not really interested in being in the business, but he wanted him in the business. So he gave him kind of this nonprofit arm of the business to run and these other pieces. But the brother much rather would prefer to take vacations.
Fish.
So he would either do that, or he might just have a couple drinks and come into the office. And that would be how he worked. And so then you end up with that whole family dynamic, but you can't really do anything because he's a member of the family. So some of those challenges can be messy.
Wow.
And then of course then there's all the stuff that we as individuals do.
Yes. Wow.
We can shoot ourselves in the foot.
Yeah, multiple times, absolutely. You touched on something that I kind of want to dig into a little more. First of all, you've spent probably a considerable amount of time doing this, but you probably don't like to be stagnant in anything you do. So how do you stay on top of best practices, emerging trends, and new and innovative ways to kind of help you think outside of your box when you're helping everybody else kind of see the bigger picture?
Gosh, that's such a great question.
Well, thank you.
I almost think I'm going to fail the answer to this question. This is horrible. It's horrible. You're going to kick me off your show.
You're like, I'm on autopilot. I don't even think anymore. I just roll up, do my thing, and get paid.
It's really funny because if I had to have this honest confession, just between you and me,
right?
Okay?
There's not a camera here.
Yeah, there's not thousands of people who are going to watch this.
Yeah.
I don't read near as much as I wish I did because I'm just so busy.
Nobody does. Nobody has time.
It's so hard. So I learn from all my clients.
Yes.
I learn from all the people that I work with every day. Now, that's really hard because one of the downsides of the role I play in the world is it's very anxiety producing for me. I'm probably an anxious guy enough, but I'm always going into different industries and businesses every day. So I know it's not like, oh, well, this is like yesterday.
Right.
It's like this day I could be working with the public school system. The next day I'm working with a large airline. The next day I'm working with a startup. It's so different. So I'm always, trying to get my bearings. But I had a mentor of mine tell me years ago that we all hold a piece of the truth. And I think that is so true. So I'm always looking for little pieces of truth.
Wow, expand on that. I love that.
So I can talk to somebody and say, what you do is not unlike what a high school principal does. And here's what I found works really well in that world. You should consider operating like that. Or what you do, what you really need is what people in this space use. In the military they do things like after action reviews, after missions. You should put that after your projects. That'll make you more efficient. It's borrowing from all these different worlds because I think that we're all doing something right and we're all doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And so I learn primarily just into conversations with people.
I am truly getting therapy from this right now. Like, y'all don't even understand. This is one of my favorite interviews. This is great.
Like I said, I feel like I should be laying on the couch.
No, I do.
And then
So I am immersed in the world of startups, and as I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking dysfunction, manipulation, people not having clear roles, like we're checking all the boxes. And then hearing you speak about truths, also in startups, we can drink our own Kool-Aid, but the data doesn't lie. So talk about some experiences you've had with startups specifically, because they are a unique animal, right? Sometimes you do have to wear multiple hats. So how do you
So startups are really interesting. They're super cool.
Yeah.
They change really, really fast.
Yep.
So just because my mind is weird and I think in analogies, startups have the lifespan or life cycle of a squirrel. It's like, oh, nut. Oh, another shiny nut. Look, a nut. There's a nut over there. Let's go. Most companies are more like, a cow or a horse. They can move like that. Most churches, religious institutions, or higher institutions for higher education, like colleges, universities, their life cycle's like a sea turtle.
Wow,
You're 150 years old, you're still young if you're a university.
Wow.
Or a church. So the change for them is really hard. So the advantage for startups is they change quick. It's always that kind of fail fast mentality. The challenge is two things. There's always this level of kind of anxiety or urgency. And two, most importantly with startups, the key to their health is the dynamic of either the partners or the senior leadership team. So when I work with startups, particularly in early stages, I'm a marriage therapist. I mean, it is marriage counseling 101.
Wow.
It's like, okay, let's talk. Okay, now talk to her about what you need.
And how does that make you feel?
Share him with what you. Okay, how do you feel about? What are your values? What are your expectations and goals?
Are we in the trust tree right now?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
circle?
It really is, because if they don't do that well, then what ends up happening is there's kind of a rift between mom or dad, or mom and dad, or mom, dad, however many leaders there are, and then they'll splinter off the organization. So I think it's one of the things that goes undervalued in startups, but that partner dynamic has to be nurtured really, really well. So they're on the same page.
Good.
Because with all that change, that's where stability lies. Because people working in a startup can totally handle the change if they know there's something stable and they can count on. And they look to the founders or the owners for that.
That's so key. I'm so excited you shared that with everybody watching, because I have a lot of people in the startup space who tune in. So awesome stuff. Yeah. How do you get inspiration daily as somebody who inspires others? Where do you turn for either personal or professional fulfillment?
Well, it's probably something very similar to what I shared with you before. It's it's meeting new people. It's being able to come on your show and get to meet someone like you and say, "Wow, what are you up to? What gets you charged up?" Yeah. When we spoke before the show, that's the kind of stuff that I was asking about. Like, where do you want to go? What really gets me excited is people that are up to something big.
Yes.
I love that. I don't care about how much money they're interested in making. I want to know someone who's got some kind of mission they're taking on, and they're trying to move the needle on it.
Big idea people.
I love it.
Yeah.
And people that are going to, they're not afraid to try stuff, and if it doesn't work out, that's okay.
Yeah.
Those people inspire me.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
I've always found that the three rarest jewels in life that I think are critical, that I think those people kind of possess, are purpose, courage, and faith. And if you have the three of those, it kind of helps fuel you and push you towards those bigger things. Purpose,
courage, and faith.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I'm kind of envious of you, because you are living, a different case study every day. And that's the best, lifelong MBA you could ever have. It's the coolest.
It's very fun. I can't complain. I can't complain. I've seen a lot of different things. Wow.
Wow, wow, wow. So for everybody out there watching who is like, I need to get a hold of this guy, I need him in my life, where should they go and what should they do?
The easiest place to find me is if you just Google the workplace therapist. There's only one. You'll find me really easily. I mean, you can always email me at Brandon, BRANDON, at theworkplacetherapist.com. But I'm a super easy guy to find.
Awesome.
I'm all over LinkedIn and Twitter and
all over the places.
Try to.
What's your favorite social media platform for personal consumption?
For personal consumption, I still do, to your point about where do I find other content and information, I'll still probably hang out mostly in LinkedIn.
Yep.
Because most of my folks that I work with are really in the professional space. And then, of course, I'll use Twitter as well, and the folks that I follow, and have them feed me content that will help me be able to feed others. So those will probably be my top two.
And I have to comment on your appearance. You're very well dressed. You're very sharp, well groomed. So do you have an eye for art, or is this from your days in the retail space, or?
It's a good question. I would like to say that this was all natural. I'm just highly coachable. That's really what it's all about. I did have an art background growing up, but for some reason it's never quite translated into this. But years ago, I did work with Saks Fifth Avenue. So they hired me to coach all their store general managers, and that was my impetus. I said, I can't go and coach these people looking like this. So I had to say, I need some serious help, because they'll look at me and they'll say, I'm not listening to this guy.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of attire, have you checked out Sid Mashburn's stuff?
Awesome stuff.
Oh my gosh. So tomorrow night I'm going to Switchyard's Downtown Club, where he'll be speaking, and man, he and Ann have totally killed it.
Yeah,
so
fantastic. I mean, awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah, I figured you'd know about his stuff.
Super cool stuff.
Yeah. Another thing you should Google, Sid and Ann Mashburn, their clothing line is impeccable.
I would say if you looked in my closet, you would think I was in need of medication.
Really?
Because there's so many different outfits I have, because I have to dress to my client.
Yes!
So I was at a client earlier this morning, which was a very traditional, I was suited up, tie.
Right.
I'm like, I can't dress like this on the show. I gotta change. So, and then I'll work with other clients, like MailChimp, and then that's different.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to adjust to that environment. So I've got to kind of use my emotional intelligence to read in context so I can adapt enough so they can let me help them.
Right there with you. You know, if I'm interviewing the CIO of Coca-Cola, it's closed-toe, low-heel pumps, blazer, you know, business attire, and then if it's CEO of MailChimp, it's t-shirt, Adidas kicks, you know, like I'm cool. I'm a cool mom. So whatever. Do you have children?
I do.
How many?
I've got 3. So my oldest is a 15-year-old girl.
Wow.
Abby, and the 12-year-old boy Noah, and the 10-year-old boy Aaron. So I've not slept in 15 years.
Oh my gosh, I have an 8-year-old, 8.5-year-old actually, Jackson. So yeah, we're in the thick of it, huh?
8.5 is awesome though.
That's
a good age.
It's great. It's great. But it's just so scary. I mean, he's halfway to 17.
That's true.
What? How did that happen, you know?
That's true.
So do you take what you do with the workplace therapist and kind of parlay it into your personal family life?
Absolutely. I mean, again, everybody holds a piece of the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at culture and I think about culture and setting values, I'm like, well, why can't you do that at home?
Right.
Why can't you set up your values at home, or what
Yes.
it means to live here, and what are the rules? And so absolutely, you know, and you have to have the difficult conversations and all the stuff that I try and work with my clients on.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely take it home. And so when I gave the litmus test earlier, clear roles,
Yep.
clear expectations, balanced feedback, more positive than negative. You would want the same thing in any personal relationship. Clear roles, clear expectations, and balanced feedback. In fact, that ratio of right around 5 to 1, 5 positive for every 1 negative, it's come from studying high-performing teams, but it's also come from the Gottman Institute, which studies marriages and personal relationships around the globe. And they found when they look at couples that have the best, healthiest dynamic, and they've been together the longest, when they code how they talk to each other, they give each other positive to negative feedback at a ratio of 5 to 1. So it's really more of a life truth. If you want people to change their behavior and walk with you over time, you've got to get more positive than negative.
I love it. I absolutely love it. This is not something that people necessarily feel comfortable talking about. So if you want to take a pass or call a mango, as I say, totally fine. But does faith play a part of your dynamic? And would you like to talk about that at all? Or
Absolutely. So when I talked about courage, purpose, courage, and faith, faith can mean lots of things to lots of people. It could be your own spiritual journey, but it can also be just you feeling like you're meant for more. I truly feel like the journey my life has been on has not been an accident. It's been something that God kind of set me out for and kind of made me this way. Sometimes I want to say, really? Like, really? We made this way? Okay. It's not always works out, but I think that that's a big part of who I am. So it plays into how I operate every day, but also plays into my purpose and how I kind of see myself. So yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So for everybody out there watching in the internet world who are just moved by you and what you do and want to help you in some way, shape, or form, is there anything that we as a community, a global community, could rally around you and help you with?
Yes, so my big thing is spreading the mission and word. I mean, I put out a lot of content on my blog. I've got a podcast. I'm really just trying to get more and more content out to help people.
Yes.
Not content that I'm expecting anyone to pay for. I'm just wanting to give it out. So, I mean, the number one thing you could do is go to my blog. And if you want to sign up, if you like what you see, that would be great. Or tell more people about it. Because I think that's the big thing, is just helping people realize that if they're in a situation that is feeling dysfunctional, it doesn't always have to be that way.
Right.
There's ways to work through it. There's ways to cure it. And so there's no point in just sitting in it.
Yeah, there's hope and there's a solution, a big one sitting right here.
There's a famous theologian at Emory, he's since passed away, named Jim Fowler. And he used to say, you always want to give people hope and handles. And I think that's so true, hope and handles.
Yes,
so
I love that.
I try to do that as best I can, give people a little spark of hope, but also handles. Like, and here's some stuff you can do.
Right.
There's a way to have this conversation with your boss.
It's not just unicorn kisses.
Yeah, exactly. Well, those would be nice. I mean, I'm totally cool with unicorn kisses.
Me too.
But if we don't have the unicorn to kiss, then what are some other practical things we can do?
Actionable.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Brandon Smith, I am so excited and honored that I was able to spend time with you today, and that we were able to tell your story. The workplace therapist is something that is sorely needed, both in workplaces across the globe, but also in homes. So just want to thank you again. We'll send a ton of people your way, and I wish you all the best in the future.
My pleasure. And until more unicorn kisses.
Yes, to more unicorn kisses.
That's right.